Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to unpack complex clinical stuff, cut through the jargon, and really give you the insights that you can actually use. Today, we're tackling something huge, something that affects so many people. Chronic pain.
It really is. It feels like a personal battle, but honestly, it's a massive public health issue. The numbers, they're just staggering. We're talking 70, maybe even 90% of people having significant headache problems at some point.
Wow.
And about 80% dealing with serious low back pain. But the frustrating part, for those who suffer day in, day out, the usual medical treatments, well, they often don't bring the relief people desperately need.
Right, and when you actually look at how well those treatments work, you get why people are frustrated. I mean, the sources we looked at point out that even really strong drugs like opioids, the ones with serious risks, addiction, constipation, messing up your sleep, they typically only cut pain intensity by maybe 30% on average. That's not a lot when you're really suffering. And sometimes things like surgery, they can actually make things worse in the long run.
Exactly. And that's why this deep dive is, I think, so important today. We're going to explore a different path, one that's about gaining internal control using self-hypnosis. It's all based on a clinical workbook, scientifically tested stuff. We're not talking about stage hypnosis or anything like that. This is real neuroscience, real psychological skills you can learn.
Yeah, our mission here is basically to give you a shortcut to understanding this whole approach. We want you to see how your own mind, it can be your most powerful ally against pain. And this is all backed by solid science. We'll walk through it step by step, just like the workbook does. Starting with, what pain really is biologically, then what hypnosis really is scientifically, and then getting into the practical tools chapter by chapter.
Yeah, the source material, it's by Mark P. Jensen, a PhD, and it's structured really logically. It builds the case. First, understand the pain itself. Then understand hypnosis. And then you learn how to put it all together.
Okay, let's jump into chapter 1. And this first idea, it's kind of revolutionary for how most of us think about pain. We've got to ditch that really old, simplistic model from way back in the 1600s from René Descartes.
Right, the Descartes model, sometimes called the specificity theory. It made sense at the time, very mechanical. You hurt yourself, a signal zips up a nerve to the brain, and boom, pain registers. Like a doorbell wire, basically.
Right.
Bigger injury, louder ring.
Sounds logical on the surface, but it falls apart pretty quickly when you look at real-life pain, doesn't it? Like, how does that explain phantom limb pain? Feeling intense pain in a limb that isn't even there anymore. Where's the injury? Where's the wire?
Exactly. Or the flip side. Think about an athlete who breaks a bone mid-game. Massive injury, right? But they might feel nothing, absolutely nothing, until later. The pain signal should be screaming, according to Descartes, but it's not.
And what about people with chronic pain, where even a light touch, like clothes brushing against skin, feels agonizing?
Yeah.
That's hypersensitivity. A tiny input causes a massive output. A simple wire model just can't explain that.
It really can't. So if the amount of damage doesn't directly equal the amount of pain, what's going on?
What is going on?
Well, this led to a major shift in thinking back in the 1960s. Patrick Wall and Ronald Melzack came up with the gate control theory. And this is the absolute key takeaway. The pain signals traveling from your body to your brain. They aren't fixed. They're actually modulated, controlled at the spinal cord, specifically in an area called the dorsal horn. They called it the gate.
Okay, so like a volume control or maybe a mixing board right there in the spine.
Precisely. And guess who's controlling that mixing board?
The brain.
The brain. It's constantly sending signals down the spinal cord to adjust the gate. If you're anxious, worried, depressed, or just really focused on the pain itself, the brain sends signals that effectively fling the gate wide open. Even small signals get amplified. But if you're engaged in other things, using coping skills, feeling safe, the brain sends signals to close the gate, turn the volume down. So pain isn't just about tissue damage. It's the brain's final interpretation, its decision, after weighing up everything: physical signals, emotions, thoughts, context.
That completely reframes it. The brain isn't just passively receiving. It's like the director of the whole pain experience, deciding the channel, the volume, everything. So chapter 1 breaks down the specific brain parts involved. First stop, the thalamus.
Yep, the thalamus. Think of it as the brain's main sorting office or relay station for sensory stuff. It gets that raw pain data coming up from the spine and decides where to send it next for processing.
And from the thalamus, it goes to the sensory cortices, S1 and S2.
Right, these are like the map makers. They figure out where the sensation is located on the body and what it feels like. Is it sharp, burning, aching, dull? That's S1 and S2.
But that's just the sensation part. The feeling part, the suffering, that's different.
Totally different. That's handled primarily by the anterior cingulate cortex, the ACC. It's tucked right in the middle of the brain, and it determines the emotional flavor of the pain. How unpleasant is it? How much does it bother you? That's the suffering dial, controlled by the ACC.
And this split sensation in S1, S2, suffering in the ACC, that seems like a huge deal for managing chronic pain. Because the research suggests we can actually learn to turn down that suffering dial, right? Well, tell us about that biofeedback study.
Oh, this study is fascinating. They put people in an fMRI scanner, which shows brain activity in real time, and they basically gave people visual feedback on their own ACC activity, like a little gauge they could see. And they taught them, just through focus and mental practice, how to consciously turn down the activity in their ACC.
So just by thinking differently, they can change that specific brain region's activity level.
Exactly. And here's the kicker. They applied the same painful heat stimulus to these people. But when the subjects actively lowered their ACC activity while feeling the heat, they rated that exact same heat stimulus as 23% less painful and 38% less unpleasant.
Wow. Same heat, less pain, much less suffering, just by controlling the emotional reaction center.
Precisely. It shows how much the unpleasantness, the suffering component, drives the overall perception of pain intensity. The brain literally rewrites the experience based on how it's interpreting the emotional significance.
That's incredible.
And they didn't just do this with healthy volunteers. They taught actual chronic pain patients to do this just focused on decreasing ACC activity. Those patients reported, on average, a 44% decrease in their chronic pain intensity, just from learning to control that one brain area.
That nails the core idea, doesn't it? If you can control how your brain processes the signals, especially the emotional reaction, you can control how severe the pain feels.
Absolutely. It's direct scientific proof.
Okay, one more key brain area from Chapter 1, the prefrontal cortex. The boss.
Sort of the executive suite, yeah. Right behind your forehead. This is where higher level stuff happens. Thinking, planning, memory, meaning-making, deciding how to cope. High activity here is generally linked to less pain perception. It means you're actively thinking about the pain, contextualizing it, making coping decisions, rather than just being overwhelmed by the sensation or emotion.
So Chapter 1 gives the brain machinery, and then Chapter 2 connects it directly to our psychology. Because our thoughts, coming from the prefrontal cortex, have direct lines to the ACC and the sensory areas. Thoughts become biology.
Right. And the wrong kind of thoughts can be really harmful. Chapter 2 talks a lot about catastrophizing. That's when your thoughts spiral into negativity. This pain is ruining my life. It's never going to get better. This pain means something terrible is happening in my body. I have to stop everything.
And those thoughts ramp up anxiety.
Dramatically. Which, as we know, sends that open the gate signal down the spine, cranking up the pain volume. It's a feedback loop.
Which leads straight into unhelpful coping strategies.
Yeah.
The workbook uses an example, Nancy, who instinctively rests and guards the painful area whenever it flares up.
Yeah, that resting and guarding feels like the right thing to do in the moment. It gives immediate short-term relief. But it's a trap. Over time, not moving leads to muscle weakness, deconditioning. Then, when Nancy does try to be active, her body is less resilient, so the pain flares up much more easily.
So the pain threshold gets lower, activity tolerance shrinks.
And it reinforces the catastrophic thought, see, I can't do anything because of the pain. It becomes this vicious cycle of pain, inactivity, more inactivity.
Okay, so Chapter 2 also gives us the way out.
Yeah.
Helpful coping strategies. How do we break that cycle?
3 key things the workbook emphasizes. First is pacing. This isn't about pushing until you drop on good days and doing nothing on bad days. It's about maintaining a consistent level of activity with planned breaks, regardless of how you feel that day. If the goal is 30 minutes of walking, maybe you do 10 minutes, rest 5, walk 10, rest 5. You finish the task without ever hitting that massive flare-up point.
That takes discipline. It feels counterintuitive not to push when you feel good or stop completely when you feel bad.
It does, but it's crucial. Pacing retrains the brain. It teaches it that activity can be safe and predictable, not something that inevitably leads to overwhelming pain. It prevents that deconditioning. Second is task persistence. Basically, trying to stick to your planned activities even when pain is present, not letting the pain completely dictate your schedule. Within reason, of course. And third, using positive coping self-statements. Things like, I have skills to manage this, or this feeling is uncomfortable but it's not dangerous. These directly engage the prefrontal cortex to send those calming signals down to the ACC and the gate.
All right, so we've got the why, The brain's role is central, and our thoughts and coping really matter biologically. Now let's get to the how the workbook proposes. Hypnosis. Chapter 5 dives right into debunking the myths, which seems like a necessary first step. There's a lot of weird baggage around hypnosis right now.
Oh, absolutely. Stage shows, movies, people have a lot of misconceptions. The biggest fear is usually about control. Will I lose control? Will I be brainwashed? Will I quack like a duck?
Yeah.
The workbook is crystal clear. In therapeutic hypnosis, especially self-hypnosis, you gain more control over your own mind and body, not less. You're not asleep, you're not unconscious, you're actually in a state of focused awareness. And you only respond to suggestions that align with your own goals and comfort.
So the idea of the hypnotist taking over is just fiction.
Complete fiction in a clinical setting. All suggestions are permissive. They're phrased like, you might begin to notice a feeling of warmth, or allow yourself to become comfortable. If a suggestion doesn't feel right, your mind just ignores it. You're always in the driver's seat. And it's not sleep. Brain scans show activity similar to deep relaxation mixed with focused attention. Alert, but calm.
Okay, what about the myth that only gullible or weak-minded people can be hypnotized?
Also, totally false. Hypnotic responsiveness isn't linked to personality traits like gullibility or weakness. It's strongly correlated with things like imagination, creativity, and the ability to focus your attention. And here's a really key point from the source. Using hypnosis specifically for pain management is actually one of the easiest hypnotic skills to learn. Even people who score low on general hypnotizability tests can often get significant pain relief using these techniques.
That's really encouraging. Okay, let's back this up with some science and history from Chapter 3. Hypnosis had a rocky start, didn't it? With Mesmer and animal magnetism.
It did. Late 1700s, Franz Mesmer. He had these dramatic sessions using magnets, claiming to manipulate some invisible fluid. He got results, especially with what they called hysterical symptoms back then. But his theory was pure pseudoscience. A commission, which actually included Benjamin Franklin, investigated and debunked the whole animal magnetism idea.
Right.
They concluded the effects were due to the patient's own imagination and belief, basically. What we now call expectancy or placebo, but they kind of dismissed it as just imagination.
But wait, wasn't that the key insight right there? That imagination and belief could cause real, observable changes.
Exactly. They stumbled onto the actual mechanism but didn't fully appreciate it. Because of that initial scandal, serious scientific study of hypnosis got sidelined for like 150 years. It wasn't until the 1930s with Clark Hull, and then really picking up steam with Ernest Hilgard in the 50s and 60s, that researchers started applying rigorous methods and proved hypnosis was a legitimate psychological phenomenon with measurable effects, especially for pain relief.
So fast forward to today, how do we define hypnosis clinically? Stripping away the drama.
It's pretty simple, actually. Hypnosis is basically a procedure involving focused attention, relaxation, and suggestion, where one person guides another to experience changes in their sensations, perceptions, thoughts, or feelings.
And the goal here, for the listener, is self-hypnosis.
Precisely. Self-hypnosis is learning to use a specific cue, maybe a deep breath, a word, a gesture, to quickly enter that state of focused attention on your own. You use it intentionally to achieve a specific goal. Reduce pain, calm anxiety, boost confidence, fall asleep faster. It becomes a skill you can deploy anytime, anywhere, sometimes just for a minute or two.
Okay, so self-hypnosis is a learnable skill. Chapter 4 is where we get the hard science showing it's not just in the mind, it actually changes things biologically.
Yeah.
How does focusing your attention make a physical difference?
The research laid out in Chapter 4 is really compelling because it shows hypnosis works at multiple levels of the nervous system. It's not just one thing, it affects the whole pain pathway.
Let's start right at the edge, the periphery, the actual tissues where the pain seems to originate. How can thinking change things in your skin?
There's a fascinating study they mention. They took subjects and gave them hypnotic suggestions for 2 different arms. One arm was suggested to be vulnerable, sensitive, the other numb and aesthetic. Then they applied a mild irritant or heat. The arm suggested to be vulnerable showed a significantly greater inflammatory response, more redness, more swelling, more release of chemicals that sensitize pain nerves. The anesthetic arm showed much less reaction.
So the suggestion literally changed the local biochemistry.
Yes. It demonstrates that the mind, through hypnosis, can directly influence things like blood flow and chemical release right at the site of potential injury or inflammation. It can make the pain sensors more or less sensitive.
Incredible. Okay, moving inward to the spine, back to that gate control theory.
Hypnosis has been shown to alter spinal reflexes. These are automatic responses, like pulling your hand from a hot stove, controlled at the spinal cord level. The fact that hypnotic suggestion can change these involuntary reflexes is strong evidence that it's directly influencing the gate mechanism in the dorsal horn, modulating how much pain information gets through upstairs to the brain.
Okay, periphery, spine, now the main event, the brain. We talked about the ACC study, but Chapter 4 highlights how precise hypnosis can be, right?
It's remarkably precise. Researchers using brain imaging found they could target different aspects of the pain experience based on the specific suggestion given. For instance, if they gave suggestions specifically aimed at reducing the unpleasantness or emotional distress of pain, they saw decreased activity mainly in the ACC, the emotional center. But if they gave suggestions aimed at reducing the intensity or physical sensation of pain, they saw activity decrease primarily in the sensory cortices, S1 and S2.
So it's like having separate controls for, ouch, that hurts, and ook, I hate this feeling. And hypnosis lets you adjust both.
That's a great way to put it. It's not just a general calming effect, although that happens too. Overall, brain electrical activity tends to quiet down during hypnosis. It allows for targeted adjustments to the different components of the pain experience. Basically, the science shows if the brain can create pain experiences through suggestion, it can definitely reduce or eliminate them too.
The biological mechanisms are clearly there. So clinically, does this actually work for people living with chronic pain every day? Does it last?
Yes, the clinical evidence reported in Chapter 4 is very positive. Multiple studies confirm hypnosis is effective for various types of chronic pain, low back pain, arthritis, headaches, fibromyalgia, you name it. And the benefits often last. We're talking significant relief maintained for 12 months or even longer in follow-up studies. In head-to-head comparisons, it often performs as well as, or sometimes better than, standard treatments like medication or physical therapy alone.
Okay, but it sounds almost too good. Does it work for everyone? Is it a miracle cure?
Not a miracle cure for every single person, no. There's always variability. But the immediate response rates are incredibly high. Across studies, something like 80% of chronic pain patients report significant pain reduction during the hypnosis sessions themselves. That immediate feedback is powerful.
80% experiencing relief right away.
Right away, during the session. And that relief often lasts for hours afterward, which is what motivates people to practice the self-hypnosis regularly. They know they have a tool that can be tangible comfort.
What about that hypnotizability factor? If someone thinks they're not easily hypnotized, should they even bother?
That's a really important point the workbook stresses. Your general score on a hypnotizability scale actually plays a pretty small role in whether you'll benefit from hypnosis for pain management. People who score low can still get great results. Why? Because reducing pain is a relatively straightforward hypnotic task compared to, say, complex memory recall. And it's a skill that improves with practice. If a clinician uses a test, it's mainly to help figure out which style of hypnotic induction might work best for you, not to screen you out.
Good to know. Finally, the side effects. Usually worry about those, but with hypnosis.
They're overwhelmingly positive. This is a huge selling point. In the studies, 97% of participants reported some kind of benefit. And interestingly, the non-pain benefits were often reported even more frequently than pain reduction itself. Things like improved mood, feeling more relaxed, having more energy, better self-awareness, even documented drops in blood pressure. So it's not just about the pain number. It improves overall quality of life, which explains why patient satisfaction is typically very high.
Okay, the science is solid, the clinical results are promising. Let's get practical. This is the core of the workbook, the actual techniques, chapter by chapter, starting with Chapter 6, Mastering the Induction. This is step 1.
Absolutely. The induction is just the method you use to get into that state of focused attention, that hypnotic state. The goal is to shift your brain waves into that calm, focused pattern, primarily alpha and theta waves.
Alpha and theta. Why are those specific brain waves important?
Well, alpha waves are associated with being relaxed but awake, like when you're daydreaming. Theta waves are deeper, often seen just as you're drifting off to sleep or during deep meditation. When you get a mix of alpha and theta, it seems to create this ideal state. You're deeply calm, but your mind is still clear and receptive to suggestions. It bridges your conscious analytical mind with the subconscious part that controls feelings and sensations. The induction is basically practicing how to turn on that state deliberately.
And the workbook gives 3 main ways to do that, 3 induction methods.
Yeah, 3 core techniques people can try. The first is the countdown induction. Pretty straightforward. You slowly count maybe from 1 to 10 or 10 down to 1. With each number, you take a nice, slow, deep breath. In through the nose, out through the mouth. You might visualize going downstairs or an elevator. The rhythm of counting and breathing naturally settles the nervous system, great for people who like structure.
Okay. Method 2.
The relaxation induction. This one's more about body awareness. You systematically focus on different muscle groups, maybe starting with your feet and working your way up to your head. As you focus on each part, you suggest relaxation, noticing feelings like heaviness, warmth, looseness, tingling. The key is to go slow, give yourself time, maybe 10, 15 seconds per body part to really let the feeling sink in.
And the third one sounds quite nice. The safe place induction.
This one really leverages imagination. You create a vivid mental image of a place where you feel completely safe, calm, and comfortable. Could be a real place like a beach you love, or totally imaginary like a cozy cabin. The trick is to engage all your senses. What do you see, hear, smell? Feel on your skin warmth, a breeze. The more detailed and sensory the image, the more effectively it triggers the brain's relaxation response. Your mind equates the imagined safety with real safety.
The workbook really pushes using an induction response form after practicing these. Why is tracking your own reaction so important?
Because everyone's different. Self-hypnosis isn't one size fits all. You need to figure out what works best for you. Did the countdown feel better than the relaxation? Was 5 minutes enough time or too much? Did imagining warmth work better than imagining tingling? Are you better with visual images or bodily sensations? That feedback helps you personalize your practice, making it much more efficient and effective over time.
Right. Tailor to yourself. Okay, chapter 7. We're induced. We're in that focus state. Now what? This chapter gives us the direct tools for pain itself. 4 key scripts.
4 main strategies for managing the physical symptoms. The first one is decreased pain unpleasantness.
Okay, this is the one that sounds weird to me. If I'm hurting, why would I focus on accepting the sensation to reduce the unpleasantness? Isn't that just giving in?
That's a really common and understandable reaction. But it's not about giving in to the pain ruling your life. It's about accepting the presence of the sensation in this moment without the added layer of emotional struggle of fighting it. When you mentally fight the pain, I hate this is awful.
Yeah.
You fire up the ACC, that suffering center, which actually makes the overall experience worse. By learning to mentally step back, acknowledge the sensation without the emotional alarm bells, you calm the ACC. And often, when the unpleasantness drops, the perceived intensity, S1, S2 activity follows.
So it's like turning down the emotional amplifier allows you to perceive the raw signal more accurately, and maybe it's not as bad.
Exactly. Strategic detachment, not surrender. The second strategy is hypnotic analgesia. This is more direct. Here, you actively imagine a pleasant, powerful sensation overlaying the painful area. Maybe cool, soothing numbness like lidocaine, or gentle warmth spreading through the area, or even a color that represents comfort soaking in. It's about replacing the pain signal with a comfort signal. This often works well for inflammatory pain like arthritis.
Makes sense. Third strategy, sensory substitution. Sounds clever.
It is. Think of chronic pain as a radio station stuck on loud static. Sensory substitution is intentionally tuning the radio dial. You deliberately shift your focus away from the pain and onto a different, more neutral or pleasant sensation nearby, maybe tingling in your fingers or the feeling of your clothes or warmth somewhere else. You then use suggestion to amplify that chosen sensation, letting it grow stronger in your awareness until it starts to crowd out or overshadow the pain signal. You're retraining your sensory cortex to prioritize comfort.
Wow. And the fourth script is for those awful flare-ups. Reduced breakthrough pain.
Right. Those sudden spikes in pain that can feel unpredictable and overwhelming. The suggestions here are aimed at prevention and mitigation. You practice suggestions designed to decrease the frequency of flares, lessen their intensity when they do happen, and shorten their duration. It's about teaching your nervous system to catch and dampen those pain escalations before they really take hold.
Okay, that covers the direct pain management in Chapter 7. Chapter 8 shifts focus to the mind itself, thought and mood management, using hypnosis to boost helpful thinking.
Yeah, this builds on the coping strategies from Chapter 2. The first step here, surprisingly, is practicing tolerating ambiguity. The workbook points out that people who catastrophize tend to jump to the worst possible conclusion instantly. Friends late, must be a car crash. Aches worse today, must be a serious new problem.
Right, that immediate jump to fear.
Exactly. So the skill is to practice pausing before drawing that negative conclusion. When the scary thought pops up, you consciously stop and say something like, okay, wait, I don't actually know that for sure. Let me wait for more information before I assume the worst.
Just creating that little gap prevents the immediate anxiety surge that fuels pain.
Mastering the pause. Then what? Then you actively cultivate focusing on helpful thoughts. You identify specific, realistic, reassuring beliefs. Things like, I have the tools to handle this flare-up, or this pain is temporary, or my body is strong and healing. Then you use your self-hypnosis cue, that deep breath or keyword, while repeating these helpful thoughts. Entering the hypnotic state helps embed these positive beliefs more deeply, making them feel more true and automatic, replacing the old negative loops.
Makes sense. And then there's this really creative technique, time progression. Tell us about that.
Time progression is cool. It taps into your subconscious wisdom and hope. You hypnotically imagine traveling forward in time, maybe 6 months, a year, 5 years, to meet a future version of yourself who is managing their pain really well. They're coping effectively, feeling confident, enjoying life. You mentally step into that future self, feel what it feels like to be them, notice their sense of calm and capability. Then you ask that future self for advice. What did you do? What thoughts helped you get here? You bring those insights back to the present to guide your actions now. It's a powerful way to generate solutions and hope.
Using your future self as a mentor. I like that. Okay, last practical section, Chapter 9. Activity and sleep. Two huge areas hit hard by chronic pain. How does hypnosis help with activity and coping?
You can use that same time progression technique, but focus specifically on behavioral goals. Let's say your goal is to start exercising regularly, maybe walking. In hypnosis, you vividly imagine yourself successfully completing that walk, feeling good, feeling safe, enjoying the movement, noticing the accomplishment. You rehearse the success mentally. This builds confidence and reduces the anticipatory anxiety that often stops people from even starting. It prepares your nervous system to accept the activity as safe.
Pre-paving success. And what about sleep? Chronic pain and poor sleep are such a vicious cycle.
Huge connection. Chapter 9 touches on the sleep science. We need cycles through different stages. Stage 4, deep sleep, is for physical restoration. REM sleep is vital for emotional processing. Chronic pain disrupts both, often leading to less restorative sleep, which makes you more sensitive to pain and more anxious the next day, which makes sleep worse. You see the cycle.
Definitely. So job 1 is basic sleep hygiene.
Absolutely non-negotiable. The basics laid out are: avoid caffeine, nicotine, and alcohol, especially in the evening. Alcohol might make you drowsy, but it wrecks sleep quality, particularly REM and stage 4. Keep a consistent wake-up time 7 days a week if possible. This anchors your body clock. And reserve the bed for only sleep and sex. No work, no screens, no stressful conversations in bed. Train your brain that bed equals sleep.
Okay, stage set with hygiene. Now, how does self-hypnosis help you actually drift off at night?
Well, the hypnotic state itself with those alpha and theta waves is naturally very close to the brain state of falling asleep. So doing an induction at bedtime is a perfect transition. One simple technique is just to use your natural relaxation response. As you lie there relaxing, you'll feel little muscle twitches. They're totally normal. Just passively notice and count them. 1, 2. Eventually, you'll lose count because you're drifting off.
Using the body's own signal. Nice. And the other technique for busy minds, the 3-2-1 technique.
Yeah, this one is great for shutting down racing thoughts or worries. It gives your conscious mind a simple, boring task. You gently focus on, say, 3 things you can hear right now, then 3 things you can feel physically, your little blanket, then 3 things you can see, even just shadows or light patterns with eyes closed. Then you cycle down: 2 things heard, 2 felt, 2 seen, then 1 heard, 1 felt, 1 seen. And you just keep repeating that 3-2-1 cycle. It keeps your attention gently occupied, preventing the worry loop until you naturally drift into sleep. #tag outro.
Wow. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground, chapter by chapter, through this clinical approach. I think the big takeaway, the central message here, is that hypnosis isn't magic. It's a learnable skill, a biological and psychological skill that gives you real influence over your own brain, which is ultimately where pain is generated and experienced.
Absolutely. By learning to direct your attention, you can demonstrably change activity in the parts of your brain that register pain intensity, the sensory cortex, and the parts that determine how much you suffer from it, the ACC. And the key, like any skill, is practice. The workbook emphasizes that even brief practice sessions, just a few minutes, several times a day, build the skill and lead to those really significant, long-lasting benefits, potentially for months or even years.
So here's something to think about, a final thought based on all this. If neuroscience clearly shows you can learn to consciously change activity in the specific brain areas for physical sensation and emotional suffering, what else could you potentially master? What other seemingly automatic emotional reactions or even physiological responses might be within your reach? Just by using focused attention and intention. Makes you wonder, right?
It really does open up possibilities. And one last crucial point from the source material: A practical recommendation. If you're looking for professional help with this, make sure you find a properly licensed clinician. Someone with an advanced degree, like a PhD or MD, who is trained in hypnosis but uses it as part of a comprehensive pain management plan, often alongside things like cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. That ensures you're getting evidence-based, ethical, and complete care.
Excellent advice. Find qualified help for a complete approach.